You might know my next guest from The Clearing on Disney Plus. Return to Paradise on the ABC and BBC. Dr. Blake Murder Mysteries, Offspring, Blue Healers. The list goes on, including live theatre like A Midsummer Night's Dream or Much Ado About Nothing. Welcome to Showtime, Nicole Nabout.
Thank you, Andrew.
So you are in a caravan somewhere at the Botanic Gardens. Is that where you are right now?
Absolutely. So I'm sitting inside now the girls' dressing room, which is a shipping container.
Yep.
With a window and a door. So, we're not...
So a fancy shipping container.
Very fancy, with and this is the remnants of the show they've just closed, Merry Wives of Windsor.
Yeah, and we were chatting to some of the team from Merry Wives of Windsor just before Christmas, which was great.
Yeah, so they closed on Saturday and now we're here. So a lot of the way the Australian Shakespeare Company work, a lot of the cast, generally the casts are double between the shows. So most of the cast have just finished the Merry Wives and we're opening Macbeth on Friday.
You've been doing this for a little while now. Macbeth isn't your first rodeo. In fact, some would argue Macbeth is not a rodeo, but it's not your first rodeo. How did you get started in this crazy world of performing?
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think sometimes I was always I finished school. I'd been heavily involved in theatre when I was at school. I went off to Melbourne Uni and enrolled in architecture and thought it sort of suited both my academic strengths and my desire to do something creative. But then I just got so involved in the theatre world. So Melbourne Uni had a very strong theatre department when I was there. The fabulous Andrew Ross was there. But look, I was there with Barry Kosky and Michael Cantor, Melissa Madden Gray, who's Meow Meow. So we had a very strong core of actors, and a lot of us then went on. So I didn't finish architecture, I finished my BA and I went overseas. I was very lucky and got a travel grant with the Queen Elizabeth Silver Jubilee Trust for Young Australians. Quite a title.
Try saying that quickly 5 times.
Quite a title. Oh, then I took that and I got that to go to École Internationale de Théâtre Jacques Lecoq. See, that's even longer. But you've got to say the whole thing, because if you just say, look, I studied at Lecoq, people give you quite strange looks. So I went there and I did the 2-year diploma there, which was a physical-based theatre school and an extraordinary experience. So that was in my 20s, and I came back. I went to the UK for a little while, but I was actually ready to come home after 2.5 years away. I wanted to come back. And I came back, and in fact, my first professional theatre job was with this company in my 20s, and we did, I played Titania in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and then the following year I worked with them again, and I played Beatrice in their first production of Much Ado About Nothing. So I had this lovely connection with the company, and then I went off and did, a lot of other work, including some of the TV work and, working with Malthouse and Playbox, and then Malthouse and different theatre companies. And I came back to work with Glenn again. I was doing Because the Night at the Malthouse, which was the immersive show that we did during COVID. So we were on and then we were off and then we were on and then we were, the nightmare of COVID. But this extraordinary show, and I worked with an actor called Sid Brisbane, who's a fantastic actor, and he had a strong connection with Australian Shakespeare Company, and he rang me and he said, would you be interested in working with them again? I went, yeah. So I came back and I did Romeo and Juliet that year, and then last year I did Midsummer Night's Dream, and I played Titania again after a sort of 20-year hiatus, and that was a really interesting process of coming back to the character 20 years later, and how differently, how experience and age and what's going on in the world influences the interpretation of the character.
And the way you approached that, was that rediscovering or discovering a new character as you would for a work that you haven't done before, or was it a bit more like coming home?
It was a sort of a combination of both, because the lines still sit somewhere in you. You know, even after 20 years, you pick up the script again and it's like, oh yeah, I know this. But what they mean to you is quite different. And to Tanya in particular, you know, I did it as a 20-year-old, pre-children, as a child, really. I mean, in so many ways, you're still a child in your 20s. And then I came to it as a woman who'd had children, and in this new world of fear of environmental issues and what's going on politically, and suddenly a lot of those lines with Titania about, you know, what is happening, you know, she really is very much in touch with the environment, and what happens with her is reflected in what's going on in the world, had a very different meaning, because we are in a we're in a challenging time environmentally. Yeah, so it's interesting. It is both. It's both, but and there's something. It's a real gift, actually, coming back to a character again and being able to layer it differently.
In this role, it's not often that I get the opportunity to ask really hard-hitting, controversial questions, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but when you're working on that Scottish play, are you allowed to say its name in the theatre?
Well, technically, we're outdoors, so I use it. I don't. I won't do it. If I walk into a theatre in the theatre doors, I won't say Macbeth. But here, I feel safe enough to say it. So, yeah.
And of course, you're playing Lady Macbeth.
Yes. I mean, how lucky? How lucky am I?
Well, how lucky are we to be able to see you performing Lady Macbeth? But what's it like performing Lady Macbeth in a setting like the Royal Botanic Gardens?
Look, the beauty of working in the outdoors is that you are able to, firstly, the magic is there straight away. The lights, you know, the sun comes down and there's the sound of birds, and there are these extraordinary trees with lights, and there's a magic about the gardens. And for this play that does dip into that sort of metaphysical world with the witches and Lady Macbeth, who channels, you know, her speech of "Come, you spirits," you know, and suddenly I'm here, I'm there on the stage, and there's, you know, there are stars and moon and animals, and the whole thing of saying, "Come, you know, fill me with the power that I need to act what we need to, you know, what we need to, you know, to take the life of Duncan." You know, it's a real gift. It's a real gift being in the gardens in that way. And I think that you feel it too in the audience, because I also come and, you know, see the shows, that you're sitting there and it's not just what's happening on stage. It's, you know, we've got this extraordinary, we've got the sky is our, you know, part of our set. The trees are part of our set. The air, the wind, and, you know, and every night it's a little bit different too. It might be a bit windy.
And especially in Melbourne, you know, you'll have a clear night, you'll have an overcast night, you'll have a windy night, you might have a rainy night.
Yeah. And Melburnians, I've got to say, I think that we are excellent at dealing with the weather. So it's,
well, we're pretty used to it, aren't we?
We're used to it. You know, a little bit of rain comes down and people don't run for their cover. They just sort of pop on their little, you know.
Well, we know it'll. Well, yeah, as I like to say to visitors to Melbourne, if you don't like the weather in Melbourne, just wait a minute.
So true. It'll pass.
It'll change.
It'll change.
I think it's a reasonable understatement to suggest that Lady Macbeth is psychologically quite a complex character. How do you prepare for that?
The way we've rehearsed this has been great, because actually we did a solid week's rehearsal in late November. Then the other cast, so with the cast who are also did Merry Wives of Windsor, then we went into a little bit of a hiatus where they rehearsed up Merry Wives of Windsor. So for me, I could have that week of working with the text and working with the other actors and, working with Macbeth, and Hugh Sexton plays Macbeth, and he's just fabulous to work with. His ability to, he has an extraordinary skill with the text, but also accessing those emotional changes that need to happen with the character. And we've been able to build because one of the very important things about Macbeth, I think, is that relationship. You have to believe that Lady Macbeth and Macbeth are, that level of obsession with each other is, it has to be palpable. You have to feel it. The audience has to go, yeah, I believe that they would work together like this. I believe that her ambition for him to become king is real, and she also, they've lost a child, so it's an interesting process for Lady Macbeth. She comes from a grief. The beginning of the play, we don't know when exactly. I mean, that's for the actor to interpret, or I have my own backstory that I have. But she comes from this sort of deep, and her husband is at war, and she's isolated, and she's lost a child, and suddenly there's this, this possibility, this ambition that he will be king. And what does that mean? And how does that take you? And where do you move if you're in this sort of grief? What snaps you into that? Yeah, let's act. Let us do this. Let us do this incredibly raw sort of desire to act and to move forward and to change things. And it's a complete sort of jump into the unknown for them. Okay, let's kill Duncan. Maybe we'll be caught. Oh, well, if we're caught, there's a line of Macbeth says, if we fail, and Lady Macbeth's response is, we fail. So it's like, so she has gone to the depth of her despair. The jump into this deed for her it's like, oh well, if it works, it works. Doesn't work, oh well, whatever. There's not a strong connection to wanting to. She has no fear nearly. But, So I think so in terms of that, and then you have the movement for her psychologically from that period to the build up of the murder, and then the celebration of him becoming king, and their connectedness is incredibly strong, and that's a big part of the strength they have. And then there's a movement away from that at some stage. He steps away, and his fear or his processing of what he's done, he moves away from her, and it's that sort of destroys her, the guilt of what they've done. But even more than that, it's that he's left her in a way. So she has now nothing, I think, and that's where she descends into a sort of psychosis. Yeah. So it's not a light character.
Not a light character. I mean, it's such a complex work and such complex characters that you're bringing to life. In a 2025 context, what message are you hoping audiences can take away from this?
I think, in terms of political message, there's still this thing, what is ambition? Is ambition can drive life, but it can also lead to such destruction. And I think that the political ambition of our global leaders, we see the destruction that can bring. Without humanity, ambition is so dangerous, And we do see that, and you see that in Macbeth. The ambition leads to destruction. It doesn't lead to, without that humanity, everything becomes, there's a worthlessness or a senselessness or a worthlessness or we're not valuing the lives that we're trampling over to get to the top. So that's pretty 2025.
Sounds pretty 2025, sadly. And it's. I mean, not to overly politicise this, but it's not just 2025, is it? It's a part of our humanity that keeps popping up its ugly head.
Yeah, it is.
And maybe this is a reminder that there are other ways to exist, to live, to thrive.
Yeah, and it is that thing of what is success, what is power, what is power, and when power is used well, it's wonderful, and when it's abused, it doesn't often lead to much happiness, does it? There's one of the lines is, naught's had, all spent, when our desire is got without content. So when we grapple for things we want, but we don't find the happiness or the joy, it's nothing. Everything, what is the point? Nothing's had, nothing's gained. So,
and that's like most things, isn't it? It exists on a spectrum. I mean, at one end, it's politics and power and global domination and all that sort of stuff. But at the other end, it's also, this fast fashion, this consumer culture, and constantly ordering stuff and buying stuff, but never feeling that sense of contentment.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting period that we're going through in that way. We get these very quick fixes, but they're obviously not leading to long-term happiness, because we need to keep doing it. And it's so easy to get caught up in it, though. I mean, I have teenage children, so I also see that it's part of their culture now. There's sort of very quick turnaround, even to the point where I remember when they were all starting to do their formals, and you have to post what you're going to wear, and nobody can wear what anybody else is wearing, and then you can't wear what you've worn previously because it's been photographed. And I still have my year 12 formal dress, and I've kept wearing it. It was like, imagine if you can only wear something once. I mean, it's and as a parent, you sort of try to talk through all of that, but we all fall victim to the quick fix and the quick little joys we get of purchasing something that's flipped up on Instagram, or Lady Macbeth and Macbeths don't do a lot of online shopping though in this show.
I can't imagine they do, although the 2025 version, who knows? Don't want to spoil anything.
Maybe.
I'm chatting with Nicole Nabout about Macbeth, that opens this weekend. It opens on the 31st of January at the Royal Botanic Gardens at the Southern Cross Lawn. And for more information and to book tickets, there'll be a link below. Nicole, thank you so much for the chat, and all the very best for that Scottish play.
My pleasure, and thank you for chatting. And I love watching your interviews with people. It's a really lovely way to get to know people behind the scenes of what they're doing, and really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing everybody come along to the show. It's beautiful. The lovely thing at the moment is that it's warm, so people can come down and bring their chairs and their picnic rugs and see a bit of murder on the lawn.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Andrew.